Hello mga kayano, welcome to my YouTube channel. Ang video ko today is about chess. Yeah. So, ituturo ko sa inyo paano ba maglaro ng chess. Well, chess is a mind game and it doesn't require any physical activity. Kasi it's full of, strategy to win. Okay, so sana marami kayong matutunan in this video, especially to those aspiring chess players out there. Okay, so let's start. Okay guys, so this is a chessboard and it has 64 squares with two different colors. So in this case, it's brown and white, but the most common colors are green and white. It has also letters from A to H, which is called file, and numbers from 1 to 8, which is called rank. So ano ba ang purpose why it has letters and numbers? So this is used to record your moves and your opponent moves as well, which is required when you join in a tournament. And bakit ba need record yung moves? Well, this is for analysis purpose because at the end of each game, you can use recording to analyze which portion of the game you had mistakes or brilliant moves. So in my next video, I will show you how to do this, but for now, I'm going to show you the chess pieces and their arrangement in the chessboard. I will show you as well their corresponding moves and equivalent points, which is somehow useful in deciding exchange of pieces with your opponent. So for example, if I will exchange my queen with my opponent's two rooks, am I going to win in the next few moves? Okay, so pawn has 8 pieces and it is placed from A2 to H2 if you're playing white. Then for black, it's in A7 to H7. So for white, it's A2 up to H2. Okay, and then for black, it's in A7 to H7. Okay, next is rook. I called this before as tower. Well, tower naman talaga siya, but in chess, it is called rook. Okay, rook has two pieces and should be placed in both corners of the board. So for white, it's in A1 and H1. And then for black, it's in A8 and H8. Next is knight. Isa pa to, ang tawag ko dito before, horse. Well, sa itsura pa lang, horse naman talaga. But of course, in chess, it's called knight. Okay, knight has two pieces and should be placed next with rook, which is in B1. So for the white, it's in B1, and the other one is in G1. Then for black, it's in B8, and the other one is in G8. Next in line is bishop. It has two pieces as well and should be placed in C1 and F1 in white. So C1 and F1. Then for black, it's in C8 and F8. Okay, here's now the most powerful chess piece, and if your opponent captures it, the tendency is you will be in a losing position. But it depends as well on how you play the game. You can still win without it, depending on your strategy. But keep in mind to protect it always. Otherwise, you might end up losing. So, without further ado, parang special guest lang ha. It's the queen. And its position is in D1 for white and then D8 for black. Lastly is the king. So, king is the piece that you should always protect as well aside sa queen kasi pag na-checkmate yung king mo, alam na this. So, it's placed in E1 for white and then E8 for black. So always remember that queen should be in D file and king in E file. Because when I was young, well, next parang once upon a time lang. Ha? So kapag papalit ko yung position ng queen and king. So the best way to remember this para di nyo din mapagpalit, especially if you have chessboard with no letters and numbers, tandaan nyo na ang white queen should be placed in color white square and black queen in the dark or green square. Okay, so next is their movements in the board. So if you are playing white, you're somehow lucky kasi you will be the one to move first. Ang nature kasi ng white is to attack since siya yung first move. Then black is on the defensive side. So pawn, during opening of moves, ito lang yung pwedeng galawin aside sa knight because it can jump over the pawn kasi nga kabayo siya. So bihira lang kasi gamitin ang knight in first move and commonly used talaga ang pawn. So in first move, pawn can be moved up to 2 squares. So pwedeng 2 squares agad or pwede naman 1 square lang. But the following move should be 1 square na. Okay? So pawn should be moved forward always. Walang backward ha. Ang pawn kasi para yung soldier, lusob ng lusob. So bawal umatras. And then when it captures the opponent's piece, the eating position, parang kumakain lang sa cafeteria. It will take the opponent's piece diagonally. So, medyo mahaba-habang usapan when it comes to pawn. Siguro I'll make another video for pawn structure and movements. Okay, next is rook. The movement of rook is in horizontal and vertical direction, either forward, backward, and sideways. So, if may nakaharang sa dadaanan niya, it cannot move freely. Rook is also used for castling. So, what is castling? It's a move when you try to hide your king to a safer position. So, for instance, let's put the other rook in A1 and your king in E1. So if you do castling on the king side, touch first the king and put it in G1 and put your rook in F1. So this is the king side castling. If you're going to make a castling on the queen side, so touch again your king and put it in C1 and your rook in A1 should be placed in D1. So that's the queen side castling. So you can do the castling if the king and rook are not yet moved in their original position. At saka dapat walang nakaharang sa dadaanan nila. So dapat walang piece dun sa F and G file and then dun sa B, C, and D file. Ito naman yung sa queen side castling. Okay. But if the squares that you are going to take are not free from check, you are not allowed to do castling. So kapag nag-castling ka, the king is passing the F and G file. So this is for the king side castling. So dapat walang nakatutok na opponent piece on its way. So for instance, let's put bishop here and knight. So if you're going to do castling on the king side, hindi siya pwede kasi may bishop na nakaharang, nakatutok doon sa F file and yung knight, so let's put it in H. So yung knight, nakatutok naman siya sa G file. So hindi ka pwedeng mag-castling. Okay. But always remember when you do castling, always touch first the king. Kasi if you touch the rook first, even if your intention is to make a castling, it's considered as a rook move. and not castling. So be careful when you play chess ha, kasi kung ano yung nahawakan mong piece, yun na yung ititira mo. It is called touch move. Okay, next is knight. So knight can jump over any chess pieces and its movement is letter L. So if it's placed in the corner of the board, like for instance, in A1 or in H1 or in A8 or H8, its movement is very limited. Unlike if it's placed in the middle of the board, it has 8 possible moves. Next is bishop. Bishop can move diagonally only. So if white's bishop is in dark square, so for this instance, this bishop is originally placed in C1, so he can move only on dark squares. So same with bishop in F1, so he can only move as well in all white squares only. Okay, the queen. So sabi ko nga kanina, queen is the most powerful and important piece in the game, and it can move in horizontal and vertical direction, which is the rook's move, and even diagonal direction, which is the bishop's move. So combination siya ng rook and bishop. So knight move lang ang di niya kayang gayahin. So if your queen is captured by your opponent by other pieces, except sa queen ng opponent ha, kasi exchange queens lang yon, for sure you will lose the game. Okay, finally the king. So the movement of the king is only one step at a time. He can move either one step forward, backward, sideways, and even diagonal. But you're not allowed to capture the piece if you will be in a check position. So it simply means, hindi pwedeng kainin ng king ang pyesa ng kalaban kapag may nakasupport dito. So the king can only do this if he is free from check. Okay, how to capture opponent piece? So for pawn, it can capture the piece diagonally only. While rook can capture the piece horizontally and vertically. Okay, and then knight can take any pieces in L position. And then for bishop, it can capture only the opponent's piece diagonally. Okay, queen can capture everything on its way except on the piece in L position because only knight can do this. Lastly, the king. King can take any pieces within his range except if he is in a check position. So for instance, if this black pawn in d5 is supported by a black pawn in e6, king cannot take this pawn in d5 because he is in check position by the pawn in e6. Okay, ito naman yung equivalent points ng chess pieces. So pawn is 1 point, knight is 3 points, bishop is 3 points as well, while rook is 5 points, and then the queen is 9 points, and then king has 0 point. So itong pointing system will help you decide in exchanging pieces with your opponent. So for example, if you want to exchange your bishop sa knight na opponent mo, okay lang yan kasi same naman sila ng points. But if you want to exchange your rook, okay, like this one, sa knight ng opponent mo, lugi ka kasi mas mataas ang points ng rook versus the knight and mas powerful siya. So the decision of exchanging pieces with your opponent depends on how you play the game or your strategy. So kahit na ipagpalit mo yung rook sa knight or bishop ng kalaban mo, basta nasa winning position ka, okay lang yon. Alright, so I hope you learned a lot in this video what the chess pieces look like and their names and their setup in this chessboard. Or yeah, this one is a chess mat, and of course their movements and their equivalent points. So enjoy playing chess. Checkmate. See you in my next video.